I think it appeals to the insecure overachiever elite. Nobody building anything really gives a shit about Davos. Nobody is thinking what's going on. Nobody even knows when it happens. So who cares about it? People who like status and went to fancy schools and wants to feel like they're in the club, and that's how they've made it, is going to this place, which underneath is a membership organization where people pay based on the number of people that get to go. So is it really that important? Substantively, no.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have Chamath and the In Podcast discussing their latest market predictions, as well as the very strange projections coming out of Davos 2023. As business leaders and economists gathered for this unusual annual event, Davos 2023 seems to have a big question mark attached, as media outlets seem to be covering more of this previously secretive meeting. One main topic was the globally high inflation and interest rates that central banks have pushed through in the past year. This has led to a warning of recession and caused some of the world's biggest companies to hold their breath and their spending ahead of an uncertain year. Chamath doesn't hold the event or its guests in high esteem and believes Davos is only an appearance of an organization that's trying to gather the top business and government leaders so they can control more of what happens globally. Let's get right into the latest interview with Chamath as he gives his reaction to the economic landscape for 2023 and how this annual event is causing more fear to be poured into the market. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
Overachieving surplus elites in the West really value the signal that it represents to other overachieving surplus elites in the West. So that's what Davos is. That's what the Allen and Company conference has become. A lot of these things started off much purer than what they are today, but these are all membership-driven, revenue-generating efforts. In 30 or 40 years, the All-In Summit will probably become that too. It's just the nature of things. So I think the bigger thing is that we are learning that the world tends to have these policy perspectives that swing in a pendulum. And the problem with the pendulum is that it is at extremes. And Sachs is right. We went from an extreme where we were very closed off and we were essentially subsistence farmers. All of us were. And then the pendulum has essentially peaked probably in the mid-teens of this decade or of this century, where we realized too much globalization actually hollows out local economies. So we need to find the equilibrium point. And that inherently has more inflation, that inherently has higher prices, and that inherently has slower progress, but more consistent progress that benefits more people. And this is what is so ideologically disruptive to, again, surplus elites, because they need the $600 iPhone. The idea that they can't upgrade every year drives them into such a tizzy that they need to export all the jobs. Whereas a $1,000 iPhone or a $1,500 iPhone may just mean that your upgrade cycle is 2 years. And just ask yourself, how many times have you upgraded as soon as the phone came out to realize, man, this phone is actually worse than the previous version, and I probably could have just waited? And there's a lot of work that actually goes into building these things to actually make them better. So all you're doing is you're giving up optionality. You're allowing your brothers and sisters to struggle to basically feed the profit motives of one company. That in hindsight doesn't need to happen. So there's an equilibrium. And I think that these next few decades will be about finding it. We have decided, it's categorical, that that level of globalization that we have had, this unitary, singular, monocultural way of thinking about things, is over. And David's right. It's because that system has created too many threats to the hegemony that brought us there.
JK, do you?
That's a good thing, I think, in general.
Yeah.
It'll be more prosperity for more people, but it'll be slower, and it will create points of friction that are represented in inflation and higher prices.
JK, as you know, Chamath points out, like if you're upgrading every 2 years instead of 1 year, your economy doesn't grow as fast. You have less spending.
Yeah.
If the price of things go up, you have inflation. The net cost of deglobalization is higher prices and lower economic growth. That's just fundamental kind of macroeconomics.
No, that's not true. That's not true, because the deglobalization in an individual economy will actually create GDP, because you'll have to rebuild the things that you used to import.
That's right. Yeah. And over a period of time, theoretically, you could catch up and accelerate. But JCal, like when you weigh this conversation about Davos and globalization and U.S. security against the one we just had, which is why I wanted to talk about this. We're running into a debt crisis. We have limited spending capacity. We have a significant amount of investment needed if we are going to cut global trade ties that we've depended on historically and start to build redundancy. Can we afford this as a country? Can the West afford this, given the economic slowdowns and inflation right now?
Davos is a huge grift. They recruited me to be part of their world leaders 15 years ago after I had sold my second company. And I met Claus, the guy who runs it, at some New York Four Seasons event. And then I got the bill. And to be a world leader was $40,000. And I was like, what, a global future leader? I don't know what that means, but I'm not giving you $40,000.
Sorry, you had to pay?
You had to pay to be a global future leader. And you didn't have to pay for a $6,000 TED ticket at the time. This was 40 large. And I just thought, this is not for me. And
what a joke. I think it's fine for them to get together. They should do it. I just think that if you're not there, I would not weigh these things so heavily because it speaks more to your own insecurity than it does to their actual influence on things.
So I would differentiate between the people who are merely attending, who are paying the $40,000, who are probably a bunch of hangers-on.
It's now $250, by the way.
$250,000.
$250,000. Yeah, anyone willing to pay that is like, totally an insecure, surplus elite.
By the way, I just got back from Davos.
Oh, you did? Okay, well, congratulations. Looks good on you, though.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
Looks good on you.
Did you spend your own money or your LP's money?
No, I didn't go to Davos.
There's the hangers-on who are spending $250,000 to feel important, but then there's the people who are invited who probably don't spend any money, who are basically speaking, right? And you got to say that the group of people who are speaking at Davos individually and collectively are quite influential. They are the leaders of countries and Fortune 500 companies.
Sure, but you can agree that they literally don't say anything that's noteworthy because they're not allowed to.
They're not saying anything that's that different of what they would say the previous week or the following week. So, but it's
a forum. It's a platform for
it's a forum for all these people to get together.
And again, as Sachs pointed out, global debt to GDP is something like 300 to 350%, depending on how you count. And we're running into a debt ceiling here in the U.S. I guess the question is, how do we afford to build the infrastructure, redundancy, and make the investments at home to replace global trade? Can we afford to do it? And how's this going to play out as we run into this, debt ceiling vote?
I don't think that's the right question. I think it's the inverse of that question. How can we afford not to? With the amount of discontent and the amount of economic strain that people feel, if you want to really quell populism, you're going to have to create economic vibrancy at home.
Whether the U.S. dips into a recession this year remains an open question, one that many business leaders and executives have been preparing for the possibility of for months. We haven't heard recession being discussed for so long, with many analysts saying if you're not nervous, you're not paying attention. The pessimism sparked last year by rapid interest rate increases have caused expectations and projections to be lower than usual. Expectations at Davos do echo this sentiment. However, Chamath believes that the $250,000 price tag to take part, along with the label of elite, doesn't translate into reality. It'll be interesting to watch what transpires this year as these previously secret meetings now discuss publicly what their multifaceted global plan is. What do you think about Chamath and the All In Podcast take on the market outlook for 2023? And do you think there's any validity to these economic predictions? Comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.